Hi, Divi. Congratulations on a massive, massive improvement from a 475 to a 735, a 100th percentile score on the GMAT Focus Edition. Kudos to this amazing, amazing score.
Hi Rita, thanks a lot.
I'm sure I know that you were very excited to receive this score, and it's been a long 7 month journey to actually getting here. You started from the 14th percentile, I believe, on the verbal side of things. You're sitting with an
Yes.
amazing 91st percentile now, a perfect Quant Q90, and a D85, which is a 99th percentile score, right? So, definitely, you've come a very, very long way. But looking back at it, what do you think really stands out as the biggest challenge you had to overcome on this journey to perfection?
So the new DS section which was introduced in the Focus edition, so
Hmm.
it was relatively unknown to most of the us, and there were like few resources on the internet also. So yeah, that was a like challenging section, and actually the timing issue in that section was like quite substantial, and yeah, that's the issues are the there's these are the issues in the DS section. For the
Hmm.
verbal section, my reading skills were like relatively very like poor from the starting
Hmm.
only. That's why I got a like 14%. I couldn't even able to attempt all those questions in a given time frame for the verbal section in my diagnostic mock. So yeah, I have to like improve a lot in my reading skills, and and also for the critical reasoning, I was like just blank. I couldn't even able to like perceive like what the argument is asking me. Like if I have to strengthen, if I have to like find the assumption, I was just blank. I just couldn't think like how to attempt those questions. What is the like the pathway to solve those questions,
Hmm.
and there were like some niche areas in the quant section which were like number properties, remainder, divisibility. So I think those type of questions we have to like get some type of some steps, like some tricks to solve them in like in a small amount of time.
Hmm.
I could do those questions in like 5 to 6 minutes, but that's not I want to do those questions in like 1 or 2 minutes. So yeah, that's the issue that I was facing in the quant section.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Got it. So, I mean, you overcame all of those issues clearly because we're standing here um, talking about your 735. But let's go back to the beginning. Let's start right from the first mock, which was a GCE mock, which was a 480 score, right?
Yes.
And obviously, you understood that there was a large amount of work ahead. And I think one of the first things that you really started working on was the verbal section. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Yeah. And
So
in please.
yeah, so actually my co-verbal was very weak. So
Mhm.
actually both of I had like two cousins, and both of them used GMAT, and they
Mhm.
both of them scored like quite good in that in GMAT. They got like 740 and 710 respectively. So both of them were engineers. So both of them
Mhm.
suggested to me also that, and both of them were from, like one of them was from BITS only,
Mhm.
and one of them was from IIT Kanpur, and both of
Mhm.
them suggested like being an engineer would be good in quants in for the GMAT, and all we have to do was like improve substantially in verbal section, because that's like quite hard for us, like for the Indian non-native people. So
Mhm.
yeah, they suggested me for the EGMAT. Yeah.
Mhm. Got it. So long line of EG matters pushed you
Yeah.
into the EG mat ecosystems themselves, right? And you've done phenomenally well. Like I said, a 91st percentile verbal score, right? Overall, that's really amazing. And I know from glimpsing at your ESR, which we'll delve deeper into in a different video, right, that V84 is backed by an 80th percentile score both on the CR and RC side of things, right? So you mentioned that when you started out with CR, you didn't really know how to approach these types of questions, and there was a little bit of guesswork involved. What tool really helped you improve your CR, and how did you change that ability and take it so far?
Yeah, so earlier I was just like reading the argument, and I just browsing through the options, browsing through all those five options, and I didn't have anything in mind before like browsing through the options. I was just reading the argument, and then I'm reading the options, and I'm then thinking. So I
Mhm.
thought it was taking a lot of time. For
Mhm.
example, if it's a 700 plus level question, it was taking me a lot of time, even like more than 3 or 4 minutes to just like dissolve that question. So it was like very hard for me. So after that, I took the EGMAT, and after that there was like some pre-thinking modules. I didn't know what the heck was that, so I was just opened those modules and saw. So they like asked me to, like, before going jumping to the questions, before jumping to the option or choices, first pre-think like what could be the assumption, like how, like so like how you can, like, find the assumption beforehand, before even knowing the options. Just think before checking the options, so that you can have an idea like of what you are trying to find through the options. And if you are finding the relevant option, then you can directly go through those and tick mark that answer. And it was
Mhm.
like relatively helpful for me. So that's how I was like using my brain before going to the options. And I was not just going to the option and then applying my brain. So yeah,
Mhm.
it helped. The pre-thinking helped a lot. So like in
Mhm.
assumption questions especially, because those assumption questions were like quite hard.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's rethinking or helped a lot. Like I think it saved me like 1 or 2 minutes per question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's taken your accuracy to really incredible heights. This is your EGMAT account, right? And we can really see that your hard accuracy is at an 80%, which is at 75 and 80, which is an absolute indication that you were more than ready to get that 90th percentile score on the actual exam. So all of that hard work, that effort that you put into improving your ability, into taking it further, we can really see that steady rise to consistent success on top, right? So very, very well done there. So that's the CR side of things. What about RC? Because you mentioned that RC reading for such lengths is not something that you were very familiar with before you started on the GMAT side of things.
Yeah, so like as I said earlier, my reading skills were like quite poor, and I didn't read like novels or like newspapers. So my reading skills were like relatively like quite poor. So what I did was, initially I did the RC's question, and I was like just scared of the huge 4 paragraphs RC's, because it consumed a lot of time for me, even 10 minutes, even like 15 minutes, just for a single RC passage. In reading, I was like able to just read them in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. A humongous amount of time I was just spending on reading the RCs, and also the questions which were associated with them. For example, the primary purpose, what the author wants to say. I was not able to differentiate between them, like what the author really wants to say. For example, whether he's evaluating any argument, whether he's analyzing, or whether he's like critiquing, whether he's advocating whether he's advocating the issue. Like these small differences, there are like very small differences in these 5 sentences that I mentioned, and those cause to like errors in the RCs. So the getting the differences, like what are the differences in between these 5 things, were like very important for me, like what the author really wants, like what is the the crust of the passage. But yeah, so that helped a lot. So for example, I was solving those, and in the EGMAT there were like written explanations for the questions, and
Mm-hmm.
those were like quite good help. That helped me a lot. For example, the riddle analysis of like what author wants to say, there was like video recordings also for the riddle solutions. Also GMAT club also helped a lot for these RC passages. For example, I filtered my RC passages on GMAT club for the Manhattan and Veritas prep, I think. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so both of them were like quite good. Both of them were like quite similar to the real GMAT passages, and the questions in them were like quite harder than the original GMAT one. So I was like able, so I was exposed to even more harder questions for the RC passages. So yeah, than the even original GMAT. So at the end, I practiced that much that after reading a normal RC passage in GMAT, I already know like what he's going to ask me, what are the traps he's going to let me put in, yeah, and how to like jump out of those. So yeah, it helped a lot.
Got it. So you had exposed yourself to such a wide variety of questions that you didn't have any surprises when it came to the actual test. That's how well prepared you were when you walked in for the actual test day, which is
Yeah,
really
even GMAT
great.
could hire me to make the papers now, I think.
Yeah, they could just say, come in, you know everything, you know all of our questions, so now make more for us. Absolutely. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was one of your bigger challenges, the verbal section, right? On quant though, you're from bits, right? You have a strong quant background, and overall you were starting at a better place there. But I know that you still went through certain parts of the NP course as mentioned, and you practiced really, really extensively on the platform as well. what do you think are the necessary things you need to do in order to hit that Q90 score on the actual GMAT exam?
So, for example, in quant, the massive weightage is given to probability, overlapping sets, and number properties, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So, in 21 questions that come in quants, I think there are usually like 2 or 3 questions that are of like 750 plus level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those type of questions come usually from number properties or like probability or overlapping sets of that I have seen since
Mm-hmm.
like yet of
Correct.
yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for those questions, and I think for yeah, GMAT punches heavily to you on quant section, even if you do a one question wrong. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you do even one question wrong, you can get at around 89 percentile, like 100 to
Mm-hmm.
89 percentile. There is a such a big gap. Even if you do 2 questions wrong, and you will be end up at 81 percentile. So you have to, I think, do even 20 or 21 questions correct. Like you have to do the entire thing correctly to get the Q91. So you can't miss out on the small niche areas, for example, remainder divisibility. Those, for example, those areas like, and also the estimation part also. For example, GMAT asked some weird type of questions on those, and I think you should be like good enough on those type of questions. You should be able to solve even if like there were like 750 plus level questions on those type of on those section, you should be able to do those type of questions in the original exam. And also, like I would suggest, like for the remaining questions, I think out of the 21 questions, 13 to 14 questions are those types which, like, if you practice good enough, now you can do those under like 1.5 minutes. So you can save especially the time from all those 10, 12, 13 questions to focus on 3 or 4 hard questions that comes in the exam. So that helped me a lot. For example, if you can see my ESR report, so most of the like 15 questions I did them under like 1.5 minutes, which were, and for the remaining 5 or 6 questions, I spent a ton amount of time on those questions, but I made sure that I did those correct.
Mm-hmm. And you still had what, 10 minutes at the end of your
Yeah,
Q90 quant section, which I think just speaks to the level of preparedness you had. I mean, doing even 13, 14 questions in under a minute and a half, supremely skilled. You have to be supremely skilled in order to do that, right? So, very, very well done there. Amazing. Okay, so verbal done, quant done. Now on to one of your bigger challenges, DI, right? What was your, I know you prepared for the GCE for some time, right? So what was your impression of the DI section coming in? What did you foresee as some challenges with DI?
yeah. So the main issue was the timing issue. For example, in Gita questions, graphical interpretation and table analysis, I was able to solve those questions, but they were taking a lot of time for me. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking average. I just, I was just analyzing my previous mocks, and I just saw that I was taking around 3.5 minutes, around 3 to 4 minutes per question on for the Gita and for TPA questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking a ton amount of time to solve those questions. So I was at the end of the day, I was able to attempt only like 12, 13 questions out of the 20 questions in the yeah, DS section. So that was
Mm-hmm.
like the timing issue was like insane in that uh, part.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the timing issues was the issue, and also there were like some uh, verbal DS questions which are like newly introduced and which are like quite time consuming and involves a lot of case studies. So yeah, those were also there, which were like, I
Mm-hmm.
think those are traps to those are traps to I
Mm-hmm.
think if you just skip those questions, that would be beneficial to, yeah.
That's what you did on the actual test, right? I believe you skipped one of those extremely complicated DS questions on the actual test.
Yeah, I skipped 3 questions. Yeah, I skipped 3 questions so that I can do my so that I can attempt all of my questions, which were like I found out were quite relatively easier one as compared to
Mm-hmm.
those 3 questions, which I wouldn't be able to attempt if I would have spent all of my time on my 13, 17, and 19 questions, which were like quite hard. I did the same mistake in my first exam.
Mm-hmm.
That I consumed a lot of time on the hard DI questions. Yeah, so because of that, I was not able to attempt my remaining questions, which were like very super easy questions on the normal DS purely quant based questions, which I was like super strong at. And then when I was, checking, when I was just guessing those questions, I was saying like this question I can solve in 1 minute, but because I don't have time, I can't solve those questions. Yeah, so
Oh yeah, that must have been very, very frustrating for you. But I think definitely the strategic skipping on your part is exceptionally well done. And I also think regarding the timing piece that you mentioned, you've definitely moved away from that because even just looking at some of these graphical interpretation and table analysis questions, you can see that you've worked steadily to bring that time down and make it more manageable overall for you to tackle the entire section, which I think is very, very well done on your side of things, right? So kudos there. But let's delve deeper into DI because there are four very different question types in DI, right? And I'm sure you had a little bit of a different approach across all of them. So graphical interpretation, table analysis, we just talked about it and the timing challenges there, right? How did the course really help you move past those challenges? Did it give you a kind of process to help you move forward?
So actually practice a lot of Scholarinium. There is a like Scholarinium in eGMAT, so it constitute a lot of like easy, medium, and hard questions on every topic of like, for example, Gita, DS questions, MSR, and TPA.
Mm-hmm.
So I was facing a lot of timing issues in graphical interpretation and table analysis. So what I thought was like I would do every question of Scholarinium of medium and higher level difficulty for the for the Gita course,
Mm-hmm.
and I would make custom quizzes of them, and I would solve them under the time. For example, I would solve 10 questions under 22 minutes. So, and my objective would be I would be attempting all those 10 questions. I would not like stand like I would not do like six questions only. My main motive was that I should be able to attempt at least 9 or 10 questions. I would skip if the question is taking too much time. So yeah, I did attempted a lot of quant scholarinium, DS and DI scholarinium quizzes. Even if you can see my account, it's like more than 100% utilized. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, if we look at Divi's account and let's actually do that really, really quickly, we'll see that on the Scholarinium side of things, you have really utilized it to the max, right? So this is your DI Scholarinium, and if we actually break it down, we'll see the only questions that are remaining are really easy questions across different subsections. This is your quant, where you've gone beyond 100 and gone to 106% use. And on the verbal side of things, you've gone to that 124% usage. So definitely you really worked and you didn't just practice these sessions from what I understand. You also really looked at those solutions. You really understood what each question could teach you and how to modify things. So you took a lot out of every question that you really
One
practiced.
interesting point was that, for example, if I do a quiz, for example, if I did a hard cementing CR quiz, okay, for 10 questions. So, for example, I did that quiz in 22, 23 minutes. But while I was evaluating my quiz responses, it was taking me around even an hour or even 2 hours for that. So yeah, even evaluating those quizzes like was I think a big difference because like I was able to analyze like even for analysis I was taking more than 6 to 7 questions for a minute because I was just analyzing. I have to make sure that I won't be making those mistakes in future again if similar type of like question come or similar type of idea of that question comes. I should not be making those type of errors again. So I was spending a lot of time, even like twice or thrice of the amount of time that I was attempting the questions. I was giving the time for the analysis of the quiz.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is what really made a difference because if you had just practiced blindly across these thousands of questions, then you would still be leaving yourself prone to, like you said, those repeated mistakes. But because you put that effort into analyzing and make sure you don't make repeated mistakes, you didn't, and you went on to get this amazing, amazing score, right? So I think again, kudos, really well done. On the DS side of things, you faced them both across your GCE prep and your GFE prep. And as you mentioned, there were some differences now with the GFE. How did you tackle DS and how did you really use DS in your test to save some time?
Yeah, so actually, after analyzing some of my initial mocks for the GFE, I came to realize that the DS questions constitutes the majority of the DI questions. It amounts to like around 7 to 8 DS questions out of 20 DI questions. So that was like major component for the DI section. And also out of those 8 10 questions, there were like six to seven questions which were like purely quant based, like median, average, overlapping sets, probabilities, and like rate distance problems, those type of questions which were like purely quant based and were not that difficult to solve, and they won't take much time also. So I made sure I was like practicing a lot of DS questions, DSP or DS quant questions through the Scholarinium. Yeah, for the DS question, I think I have used Scholarinium and some GMAT club at the end of the, when I didn't had any question left from the Scholarinium, I attempted GMAT club for some of the questions. So it helped a lot in like saving time for the other hard questions that come in the DS section. So yeah, for example, the hard MSR questions. For example, I in the exam I did my MSR correct, but it took a lot of it took a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
because they are usually hard and they take time. You can't do anything about that. You have to get some time from other questions to solve them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I saved like for example from all of those, like there were 6 7 DS questions which were purely quant based. I did them in like 1 or 1.5 minutes, and I saved a ton amount of time to invest in other questions which were quite time consuming.
Got it. Okay, so that's a really, really solid strategy, right? Okay, so then you had all these three pieces really in place. You had your verbal, you had your font, you had your DI. And I know that along this prep journey as well, you occasionally had a little bit of help both from not just from me, but also I know Payal and Rajat have also stepped in and given you some guidance when necessary, right? So how did having that kind of a guidance of a mentor, of someone to give you an outside perspective, how was that helpful for you during prep?
Yeah, so I was performing very poorly in RCs. So I just mailed to EGMAT that I'm facing issues in my RCs and like I don't know what to do. I have solved my modules and still I'm not able to get the good scores. So then so one is interesting thing, the subject of the message was target score 685. So actually, my target was 685.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I asked you guys. So like, my aim is 685. I have to improve in RCs. So please suggest me something. So one thing that was I found very like unique was that I was able to get the replies from you guys, even like with the Payal or like Rajat. They even I was like quite surprised when they even sent me their recorded videos, especially for me. For example, Payal sent me a video of a whole like
Fun.
course, like how to do. Yeah, you also sent me for the detailed analysis of my exam mocks
Mm-hmm.
detailed analysis. Rajat also sent me 1 or 2 videos regarding the error logs. So yeah, so I think the response that I was getting was quite good, and it also helped me to make sure that I'm also like making the efforts, since these people are also having a lot of making a lot of efforts for me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Got it. Okay. So then you had these individual pieces, you'd practiced extensively, you'd gotten feedback on your mocks, and your last two mocks before your first attempt were 695, right? The last two Sigma X mock tests that
Yeah,
you took.
yes.
So definitely there were a lot of things set to go right. But that first attempt didn't go exactly as planned, and you ended up with a 615. What do you really think went wrong in that test attempt?
So first of all, the quant section. I
Mhm.
don't know. I was just so nervous and excited. I in the mind it was like I would score 705 today. I don't know. Something was there that I would score today. So I was so much excited or something. So in the quant section, I was doing all those questions in under like 30 minutes, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Like I was not like reading it properly, but I was just finding, for example, X value and just finding the options which corresponds to the X value, and I was just selecting that. I was just going to the another questions. I was just skipping those questions. Like I was just reading and just finding the X value and just focusing on the other questions. I was not reading the questions properly. Like for example, if a question asked me, for example, if in one question I need to find the value of x, but the question asked me what is the product of xy. So I was just taking mark the x value. I was not like
Mhm.
properly reading what the question asked me to. So I was like pacing myself a lot, but it led to a lot of like simple, silly issues, which I know like I should not have made, because I knew like I had a like Q90 in my bag any day. So yeah, but still like I was all those like in my first attempt, all those were like silly, dumb errors, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and second for the verbal section, I actually found out that the out of four passages, two passages were like relatively quite long. Like I didn't even see those type of long passages in any of the mocks that I have given, even of the
Mm-hmm.
official ones or in the e-GMAT ones. The
Mm-hmm.
of the yeah the passages that I got in the GFE ones were like four paragraphs each, and they were like quite long,
Oh
and
wow.
it took a
Mm-hmm.
lot amount of time to even like first comprehend the passages, interpret those passages. And the question was asking, like for example, the question was like, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? And for all of the ABCD option, I have to analyze like whether this option is inferred or not. Like I have to check like every options,
Mm-hmm.
because inference questions are like quite hard because you have to go through the passage again because you can't remember everything that happened in the passage. It's not a primary purpose passage, primary purpose question that you once read and you have an idea. For the inference question, I think you have to go to the passage again because those questions like you have to go to the passage
Mm-hmm.
again. So those are taking a lot of time. And in the midway of my first attempt, I realized that in verbal section I was having a very less amount of time, and I had like a lot of questions left. For example, 10 questions left, and I had like only 15 minutes left. So I was just pacing myself for the rest of the exam. I was just not reading properly. Found out like my reading is good, but not up to the mark that I would be needing. For example, so what I realized is that GMAT Focus Edition, this new exam, tests you a lot on your reading skills in the verbal section. Questions may be
Mm-hmm.
easier than compared to other mocks or GMAT Club or other TTPs or other services, but the passages would be much hard to comprehend and much longer. They would be much longer. Questions may
Mm-hmm.
be easier, but the passages would be a lot hard to interpret. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have to like significantly, I think, improve your reading skills. I think that's a must. Like before even doing RCCR, you have to at least, I think, you should devote some time of your day to read some articles so that you can have a good reading skills so that you can solve that verbal section in time. Yeah, so
And
that's what I did in the my after my first attempt. I spent a
mm-hmm.
lot amount of time reading passages, solving RC and CRs, like a lot of. I spent a lot of RC and CRs from GMAT Club and eGMAT, so that helped a lot in my verbal section. So I think I got 71 percentile in my first attempt in verbal, and the
Mm-hmm.
second I think, yeah, 91.
91, right? And even on the quant side of things, on the first attempt, you were at a Q80,
Yeah,
71st percentile, and then now hundreds with the 90, right? What
yeah.
was your DI score on the first exam? Do you
It was
remember?
it was 86 percentile.
Got
I
it.
didn't know. I don't know the score. It was 86
Mhm.
percentile.
But anyway, now you're sitting with that 99th percentile, which is really fabulous. So an 86 would really be an 80. So 5 point improvement there from 80 to 85. So overall, you really focused on that comprehension aspect. You focused on maintaining your calm, maintaining your cool, and analyzing what the question actually wants on the quant side of things. And you focused on your timing and efforts on the DI side to really make that improvement from 615 to a massive 120-point improvement to a 735 in under a month. I would say closer to about 3.5 weeks, I
30
would say.
days.
30
Exactly
days,
30 days.
exactly 30 days.
Exactly
Ex-
30 days.
Exactly 30 days, right? So 30 days, 120 points, and 100 percentile score at the end of it. That just sounds like an amazing story, right? And it is, as we can really, really see. So kudos, hats off on that front. But yes, now that you're kind of sitting at the end of it all, 7 months, 100 percentile, two exams, right? And a whole lot of effort and practice put into it. What really do you think is the most important piece of advice that you have to share for other GMAT aspirants out there?
So I would suggest like first giving the diagnostic mock so that it
Mm-hmm.
would help a lot like in identifying the mistakes. What are you doing? So for example, I gave and I found out my verbal was like 14 percentile, and it was
Mm-hmm.
weak till my first attempt. And
Mm-hmm.
even only after my first attempt, I like did like purely verbal for an entire month. Then only I was able to get my desired score. So I think the after giving your diagnostic official mock, you will soon realize everything like what aspects of your prep what aspects of your like preps are like going wrong, which are going right. So I think you have to identify the issues which you are facing, and I think you should improve them first before improving the other things which are like quite better compared to them. So, for example, if
Mhm.
you are a 30 percentile in RCs and 80 percentile in CRs, so I think you should spend most of your time in improving your CRs, because yeah, RCs are okay. So, but you have to improve your 30 percentile, because that won't work. So yeah, identifying those like points where you can improve yourself, because from going to 20 to 90 percentile is easier than going from 80 to 90. So
Mhm.
yeah,
It requires a lot of effort.
yeah,
Absolutely.
identifying your like true weaknesses, like yeah, that helped a lot to me in my second attempt.
Got it. Well, I'm sure that your journey is going to inspire a lot of people because, like I said, this from a 475 to a 735, it's an amazing, amazing journey. And it's just a testament to your dedication, to your perseverance, and to the power of preparing well, right? So, thank you so much, Divi.
Thanks a lot,
Congrats
Veda.
once again. Yeah. And to everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed watching this interview with Divi. If you have any questions, do write to us. But for now, all the best, happy learning, and take care. Bye bye.